The first thing I noticed was the silence. It wasn't the kind of silence that calms you. It was thick, oppressive, like the air itself was holding its breath, waiting. From the moment I stepped foot into Crestfield High, I knew something was wrong. It was supposed to be just another move, another town to pass through like a ghost. But this place, it had other plans. It was supposed to be just another move, another chapter in the never-ending story of my life. New town, new school, the same old routine of being the perpetual outsider. But this time, something was different. The school, Crestfield High, stood like a sentinel from another era, its ivy-covered stone walls a stark contrast to the small, modern homes that surrounded it. The air was heavy, the sky perpetually gray, as if the sun had abandoned this place long ago. My name's Chris, just your average teenager with an unconventional life. My mom's job in wildlife research meant we were always on the move, hopping from one rural outpost to another. This latest move, in the dead of winter, landed me at Crestfield, a high school that seemed to hold more secrets than students. On my first day, as I navigated the Gothic corridors, I bumped into Liam. He was one of those kids who looked older than his years, with eyes that suggested he'd seen things no one should. He took an immediate interest in me, perhaps drawn to the invisible label of new kid plastered across my forehead. During English class, Mrs. Whitaker, an eerie, ancient figure who seemed to belong to the school as much as its walls, spoke of the town's history with an unsettling reverence. It was then that Liam leaned over and whispered, "This place is different at night, you'll see." I should have let it go, but curiosity is a dangerous thing. Later that day, Liam and I were assigned to pick a book from the library for a report. The library was a labyrinth of old books, dust, and shadows. While searching, Liam pulled a book from the shelf, revealing a hollowed-out space inside. There, we found an old, dusty journal filled with entries from students dating back decades. The entries spoke of unexplained shadows, ghostly whispers, and students who vanished without a trace. The most chilling part? The journal detailed a hidden room in the school's oldest wing, a place no one was supposed to know about. "Just stories," Liam smirked, but his voice wavered. Intrigued, we spent every spare moment poring over the journal. The entries became more frantic, more desperate, filled with hasty scribbles and crude maps. They described a secret room where students met in a futile attempt to understand, or perhaps control, the dark forces that lurked within the school. But it wasn't just the journal. The school itself seemed to turn against us. The PA system would crackle to life during class, distorted voices whispering our names. Shadows flitted at the edge of our vision, always just out of sight. A biting cold seeped through the walls of certain corridors, a cold that no amount of heat could dispel. The deeper we delved into the school's mysteries, the more isolated we became. Whispers followed us, eyes filled with a mix of fear and morbid curiosity. One entry in the journal stood out, more detailed than the rest. It described a ritual, one that occurred every 10 years, timed with the first winter storm. The ritual was meant to appease something ancient and malevolent that slumbered beneath the school. The last entry was dated exactly 10 years ago. The student who wrote it, he was never seen again. As the first snow of winter began to fall, a palpable sense of dread settled over Crestfield. But Liam and I were too far gone to stop. Driven by a mix of fear and obsession, we decided to find the hidden room, no matter the cost. That night, as the storm howled outside, we broke into the old wing. Guided by the journal's crude maps, we discovered a concealed door behind a tattered tapestry. The room was a macabre shrine, filled with objects left behind by those who had disappeared. Rings, glasses, faded photographs. As we examined the artifacts, the door slammed shut with a thunderous boom. The sounds of the storm were muffled, replaced by the slow, deliberate echo of footsteps approaching. Panic set in. We frantically searched for another way out, our breath coming in ragged gasps. Finally, we spotted a rusted ventilation duct. We crawled through it just as the lights flickered out, the sound of those footsteps growing ever closer. Emerging outside, we were greeted by the sight of the old wing collapsing in on itself, the storm raging around us like a living thing. Exhausted, frozen, and terrified, we were found by a search party led by Mrs. Whitaker. Her face was etched with worry, but there was something else in her eyes too: knowledge. As she led us back to the main building, her voice was barely audible above the howling wind. "Some secrets," she murmured, "are better left buried, but they have a way of resurfacing no matter how deep they're buried." The school quickly covered up the incident, blaming the collapse on the storm. The hidden room and its secrets were conveniently forgotten, lost in the chaos. But I kept the journal hidden under my bed, a constant reminder of the horrors we'd uncovered. The story should have ended there, but one night, as the snow fell quietly outside, I received an anonymous email. A single line was written: "The cycle continues. Are you ready?" I stared at the screen, dread pooling in my stomach. The echoes in Crestfield's dark hallways were still there, whispering in the shadows. My journey into the school's dark heart was far from over, and this time, I wasn't sure I'd make it out.